Okay, opening joke. Enter the dragon? Nah, that's been done to death. Unleash the dragon? No, no one's gonna get that one. American Dragon Jake Long? No. Look, it's a video about Spike, okay? So one of my patrons, Univabroni, requested that I do a character talk video about Spike since he was curious about what I thought of him. Well, here we go. Out of all the characters that had mixed bag episodes, Spike, for me, was the mixiest, the mixed baggiest, the most mixy. You get the point. I figured the best way for me to go about this is to use the same approach I did with my CMC video and highlight the episodes he's had in each one, as well as any other episodes where his portrayal stood out to me. So let's start with...
Holy guacamole!
At this point in the series, we were all getting used to the characters, seeing which roles they filled. For Spike, he fit the archetype of the younger sibling that couldn't help laughing at the expense of the older characters, the best example of this being Bridal Gossip. He also served as the character that would reel Twilight in whenever she had one of her moments. We then get to Spike's first starring role in Owl's Well That Ends Well, which wasn't all that memorable to me. It didn't really capitalize on the characteristics that made Spike stand out to me in the first place, instead going for a standard jealousy story. While it did show how much Twilight meant to him, it wasn't an episode that I'd find myself going back to revisit.
Holy guacamole!
I think that this was Spike's strongest season. The majority of his appearances were entertaining, whether he was a supporting character or the star of the show. In this season, we got two Spike episodes, Secret of My Excess and Dragon Quest, and both episodes delivered. Secret of My Excess took the time to explore certain aspects of dragon growth and the contrast between how Spike was raised and his innate nature, and of course some shipping bait for the Disparity fans. You know, like you do. Dragon Quest takes the concept of Spike's inner conflict and goes even further with it, actually showing what happens when dragons fully embrace the urge of greed and it gets out of control, and Spike realizes who his true family is. I think that these two episodes, coupled with issue number 14 of Friends Forever, kind of form a character arc for Spike as far as his heritage goes. As a supporting character, Spike is just as good, particularly in Lesson Zero and It's About Time, again working the angle of being Twilight's anchor. They definitely work Spike's snarky, sarcastic side in these and other Season 2 episodes, and I can't be any happier about that. Embrace the snark, Spike. Be the snark. Unfortunately, things start to go downhill from here.
Holy guacamole!
Immediately following Spike's strongest season is Spike's weakest season. This was the point where jokes at Spike's expense became more and more popular within the fandom, which is bittersweet because this was also the point where jokes about AJ being a background pony started to die down. This only gets worse in the first half of season 4, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. This season's outings, Spike at Your Service and Just for Sidekicks, weren't very memorable or interesting. In fact, the one thing that kept me from being harsher on Spike at Your Service was Applejack because, best pony. So now we come to...
Holy guacamole!
This season was pretty much a representation of Spike's character. A mixed bag, showcasing some of his worst portrayals in the first half and some of his best portrayals in the second half. The first 13 episodes of Season 4, minus Simple Ways, seemed to treat Spike as a proverbial punching bag, making him the butt of numerous jokes that weren't really that funny to begin with. Then we have the episode Power Ponies, which was supposed to prove Spike's worth and value, and the episode by itself was actually pretty good, but it's undermined by the fact that despite the lesson we learn here, Spike is still treated like a punching bag, making this the showstoppers of Spike episodes. Things do start to get better during the second half of the season though. Starting at the very end of the first half with Simple Ways, we see somewhat of a return of Spike's snarkiness when he sees Rarity break down over Trenderhoof, and while he's still given a shaft here and there, it's not as frequent as early Season 4. Inspiration, Manifestation, and Equestria Games were the remaining Spike episodes for this season, and both were strong stories, especially the former. I think the lesson of knowing when to tell a close friend that they're doing something wrong is an important lesson for both kids and adults, especially in a time when peer pressure is more detrimental than it's ever been. Equestria Games had a strong lesson too, which is unfortunate because folks were walking in expecting to see something else, given how much this event was built up. It would have been nice to have an episode about the games and then focus on teaching Spike this lesson in another episode so we can have our cake and eat it too, but what we got was still good.
Holy guacamole!
The only Spike episode we got in this season so far was Princess Spike, which was less than enjoyable. And I think that right now, Spike is beginning to fall into that same boat as Applejack, Pinkie Pie, and the CMC pre-season 4, where the writers seem to not know what to do with him. His episodes seem to be repeating a formula of him being in a position of power or responsibility, only for things to get out of hand in one way or another, and that monotony makes him even more reminiscent of the CMC pre-season 4, and it would be unfortunate if we continued down that path. It may seem convenient for Spike to be stuck in this boat, but sometimes you have to get into the water and risk getting eaten by sharks. Personally, there are two ideas that I'd be interested in seeing. We know that Spike really loves his job as Twilight's assistant. It'd be interesting to see a role reversal where we learn that Twilight needs Spike just as much as he needs her. Now, this next idea I might get crucified for, but it would be interesting to see an episode where Spike gets over his crush on Rarity. Now, before you shoot me, just hear me out. I know that a lot of people love the Disparity ship. In fact, it might be one of, if not the most popular ship in the fandom. But I think it'd be a good point of development for Spike if he were to move on from his infatuation. Few shows ever address this point in a kid's life where they get over a crush on an older person and move on. Hell, the only cartoon that I remember doing this was Hey Arnold. Will it piss off fans? Yes, but they'll get over it. Then again, some people still haven't gotten over Twilight's ascension, and that was over 2 years ago. Still, it's an interesting idea, at least to me. I think Spike has fallen into a rut right now. A rut that I hope he'll come out of. We have 14 episodes to go in season 5, so we'll see what happens. Kinda sucks though. Just when Pinkie Pie starts to get less annoying, Spike has to fall down. The show giveth, the show taketh away. So what do you think of Spike? Love him? Hate him? Indifferent? Let me know in the comments below or hit me up on Tumblr. And consider supporting me on Patreon or commissioning me for art via PayPal. Until next time, keep it sketchy, folks.